I got busted for pushing drugs. Actually, I was the first one that was busted in Polk County for pushing drugs, other than the people that turned me in. If anybody else was ever busted for drugs here in Lakeland before that, I'm not aware of it. In those days, it's just like nobody did drugs, hardly, not around here, not in Lakeland. And so when I got busted and put in jail, this was the biggest trouble I'd ever been in my whole life. And I had planned on taking my life. I actually went down to the shopping center, J.M. Field Shopping Center, to be shot by the police. I was going to fire a wild shot and let them shoot me. And they hit me from behind. I ended up in a police car. And when they put me in the car, it was an unmarked car, and they handcuffed me behind my back. And I'd made this trip several times before. I knew exactly what they would do. I was only a few blocks from Highway 98 South that leads into Bartow, about 12 miles away. And they get out there and they'd run up to 80 miles an hour real fast, and then they just hang out at 80 miles an hour until they got to Bartow. Well, when I was 15, they were doing that, and I distracted them and jumped out of the car, you know. But Hank Kroll, big, tall, lanky guy, he grabbed my leg. He grabbed my leg and stopped me, and I jerked to a stop, you know. And he hit the brakes at the same time, and the car said 80 miles an hour, and the car started sliding sideways, you know. Now, my brother-in-law was in the right seat, so I was in the middle on a bench seat. You remember the bench seats? Yeah, like an old wagon. Anyway, so when the car is sliding and I jumped out and he grabbed my leg, I grabbed hold of the armrest of the door to keep from dragging my head on the pavement. I was thinking when I hit the pavement, boom, lights out. No pain, you know, and I'm going to be, well, it wouldn't have been heaven. But I didn't know if heaven was real or hell was real either. My brother-in-law, it all happened so fast, he didn't know what was going on. The car was sliding sideways. Hank Kroll was got my ankle. And as we stopped, so I knew, all right, now let's go back. Let's go back. I'm back at J.M. Field's parking lot, November 22nd, 1968, with a pistol telling a cop I was going to blow his brains out if he didn't take some LSD. And then they arrested me and put me in this four-door car. And so I was handcuffed behind me, and I went up to the back of the seat where I could reach the door handle. Because this was not a police car. This was his personal car, and the door handle would open the door, and a police car won't. Okay, and there was no screen between the front and the back seat like a police car has. So once I could touch the door, because remember, I'm handcuffed behind my back, and I had to get into the corner of the car in order to reach that. And I threw my feet up on the back of the front seat. Now I'm in the back, but I threw my feet up on the back, and that was my distraction, okay? But once I knew I could get my hand on that doorknob, then I moved back away from that so they wouldn't perceive what I was doing. And so when the man came and got in the car, and my feet were up on that back seat, he knocked my feet off and put his finger in my face and said, "Punk! You make one move and I'll blow your stinking brains out." And so I wasn't upset about that. That's just life. That's what, he's the cop, I'm the bad guy, you know. And so we got in the car and we start driving towards the Bartow Highway, and we you know, I'm ready. I'm praying, oh God, I know you're not supposed to kill yourself. I didn't pray this out loud, just in my heart. I know you're not supposed to kill yourself. That's a bad thing, but Lord, if you were in my shoes, I'm sure you'd do the same thing. Now, if you just stop and think a minute, that's ignorance gone to seed. That's really bad. But I didn't know anything. And there's so many people out there that don't. And that's one reason I'm making this little video, because I want to tell you. So the cop pulls into this little Amoco station right on the corner of Lime and Parker. He pulled off and he got out of the car. I thought he's going to slap me around. I figured he went over and opened my door. And I thought, well, he's going to grab me up by the collar and slap me around a little bit, you know. And instead he locked the car door. Now, we're 1/2 block away from 98 South, where he's going to hit the gas and run 80 miles an hour. And that's when I'm coming out of that car. Boom! No more pain. But no, he locked the door. I thought, man, that's like a miracle. That was God. I know now That was God sparing my life. I knew I'd do it because I did it when I was 15. I just finished telling you about that. So here I am going, I was in a juvenile home 3 or 4 times before I turned 17. And when you're 17, you can go to jail. And the judge had told me, if you come back into this juvenile home again, you're going to Mariana, the state boys school. And nobody got out of there. Nobody got out of there less than 6 months. And now we read in the paper here not long ago, about 150 of them, they found their graves. A lot of people died up there. I think God spared me from that too. But then I was able to go to jail. So there was a guy there, I watched him. He played, gambled and all, and he was kind of quiet and kind of smart and attractive man. And I thought, well, he's cool. And that night, I'm waiting for everybody to go to sleep, and I was going to slit my wrist with a razor blade and bleed out in my bunk. And he's talking to this guy, had a suit hanging over his bunk, and he was going to court all the time, and so they let him keep his suit in the cell, and he had been a crop duster, and that's something I wanted to do. I had wanted to become. And so he was talking to him, this guy who had been in prison for 9 years, and he escaped several times and increased his time drastically, but he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Cliff Maple, who was the guy's name with the suit. And Buddy Franklin was the guy's name who was the ex-con, who had been in there 9 years. And anyway, so he says to Cliff Maple, he said, you know, you got eternity out here just as far as your mind can comprehend. Then you got a short little space. He said, that's your life. And on the other side of that, you got eternity again. And it goes on and 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 on. He said, there's no beginning and there's no end. Your life is just a flash of a second compared to eternity. I'm listening. Man, I'm waiting for these guys to be quiet so I can slit my wrist. And he, I said, I'm listening. And then he made this statement. He said, I don't know if the Bible is true or not, but if there's just one chance in 1,000, I wrote it in the book and titled it that. One chance in 1,000 that the Bible is really true. He said, well, man, it'd be a pure fool to take his life, knowing that the Bible says he'd spend the rest of eternity in hell. That hit me. I can't tell you how. That hit me like a rock. And I determined in my heart right then, I would never take my life. Never. Not under those odds. This is a gambler looking at the odds. Eternity is so long, and your life is so short in comparison. And I said, I'll never take my life. Not if they, here's the little phrase I came up with. Not if they hung me by my thumbs and tortured me until I died of old age. Now think about that. I said, I would never take my life. Not against those odds. 7 months later, 7 or 8 months later, I was about to do that very thing when God intervened. I call it a vision. I really think he caught me out of my body. And I saw myself sitting on the bed, look as if I was looking in through a hole in the ceiling. And to conclude this now, I want to say, I stood to my feet and I said to God, I don't know if you're really there or not. Well, I want to tell you, I always believed in God. I did know there was a God. What I meant was, if the Bible is really true, if there's a heaven and a hell and a judgment, if I'm going to have to give account of my life, that's what I meant. Are you listening to me at this time? See, that's what I meant. I don't know if you're really there or not. I don't know if you're hearing me or not. That's what I really meant. But what I said was, I don't know if you're really there or not. But if you are, what I did, I prayed some prayers best I knew how, and the next morning I rolled out of bed on my knees, lifted my hands to God, and repeated what I said. I said, Lord, if you're really there, you watch me today. I said, I'm going to quit drinking, smoking, cussing, drugs, illicit sex. Everything that I know is wrong, I'm going to quit it. And everything that I know is right, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to find out if the Bible is really true or not. In my little tract, I have 2 scriptures that tell you that almost that same thing. If you seek me with all your heart, you'll find me. And when I sought God with all my heart, I found him. I was out of jail on bond still had to face all that time in prison. I wasn't in church. I wasn't with a preacher. I was on a Harley Davidson Sportster. Actually, that's a clearer picture right there. I was on a Harley Davidson Sportster. And Jesus came into my heart. and changed my life. And you know, there's something else I said to God. I told him I'd tell it everywhere I go and everything I do. I haven't been as true to that as I might could have been. But I've given it a jolly good effort. Just about everybody I meet, I give a tract to. Try to persuade them to take time out of their life to find out if the Bible's really true or not. My name is Wayne Friedt, and I'd like to be your friend. I want to help you. Thanks for watching. I hope you've been blessed. Don't forget to like and subscribe.